Hey everyone, hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are, and welcome back to Chris and Cameras. First, I'd like to start out this episode by thanking each and every one of you. We've reached a huge milestone, which is 100 subscribers. I never thought I would get here. I thought this would just be a hobby to get my creative side out there, but here we are 100 subscribers later. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you for engaging, for liking, commenting, and just watching my videos. It really means a lot to me, and I welcome back all types of feedback. I'm open to any critiques, any improvements, any lenses you're interested in, any types of film cameras. Please let me know and I'll try my best to get my hands on it and hopefully review it. So in my first video, I announced a giveaway for these 4 expired but fridge stored films that I have as a kickoff to the start of my channel. And that was in my Leica M11 glossy black paint video. And the conditions were, if you subscribed, entered a comment that introduces a new name that Leica should have used versus glossy black paint. And if you got the most likes in your comment, basically you win the giveaway. So 14 days later, the winner is Clyde Paradoxes, and I'll try and put it somewhere here where you could see his comment. And he picked Leica M11 Pinot Noir, which sounds much more fancier than saying Leica M11 glossy black paint. And I agree also with second place, Snap Jimmy, which he said it should have just been called the M11 black paint. And it really should have. I agree with Snap Jimmy. It should have stayed black paint because everybody in the Leica world knows that black paint means basically shiny lacquer. So Clyde Paradoxes, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'll reach out to you and get all your information and ship these out to you. I'll make sure I package them carefully and enjoy the film. Congrats. And just for fun, my personal favorite comes from No Photo Credits. He says it should have just been called the Sexy M11. And I totally agree with you. This thing is just incredibly sexy. As far as camera goes, it just has a distinct sexy appeal that only black lacquer painted cameras can have. And I totally agree with you, dude. Leica, if you're seeing this, please take notes. That's what it should be called, just the Leica Sexy M11. And moving on now to what you've guys been waiting for. Today we're taking a look at a true icon, the Leica 35mm f1.4 Summilux Reissue. That's a mouthful. Try saying that 5 times. This is Leica's recreation of a 1960s legend, and today I'll show you why exactly this lens has earned its reputation. I'll do a quick unboxing, I'll show you how it handles, and we'll compare it to some other alternatives. And lastly, we're gonna take a look at who this lens is for. Leica released this lens in the early 1960s. It was designed by the famous Dr. Walter Mandler. And at the time, this was the world's fastest 35mm lens. At f1.4, this was something unheard of. And at this size, this was all the rave. While the original steel rim made its impact on history, the lens itself did not last. Within a few years, Leica replaced it with a more budget-friendly alternative made out of more aluminum, and it lost its iconic steel rim. But fast forward to 2021, Leica re-released the legend itself. The steel rim itself was not produced in large quantities, and for almost 50 years, the only way you could get one was buying the original one. And since they're so scarce, it turned into a collector's item, meaning that an original one would cost anywhere from $10,000 at the low end, all the way up to $40,000, $30,000 for one in mint condition. And let's face it, not many people have the pockets to buy a $30,000 to $40,000 lens. Leica has faithfully recreated this lens for modern M-mount cameras. The reissue retains the steel rim for the vintage look, and also the compact size and optical formula that gives this lens its famous Leica glow. Leica has made minor updates to ensure compatibility and usability with modern M-mount cameras, and also to keep up with the times where nowadays we like a bit more contrast. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And that comes in the form of updated optical coatings, which are much more advanced than what they had in the 1960s. Since I'm from the US, I bought it from Adorama. You could also buy from B&H, Leica Store Online, Sammy's. Basically, any retailer where you would buy a camera might sell it. Always double check. And it's been a few years since this has been out, so by now, they should have stock of this, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get. And of course, there's always the used market, which in my opinion is always a better value. So this is the inner box. It's cardboard, not metal. It looks almost like metal if you see it from far away. But anyways, it's pretty nice and sturdy. It feels much more luxurious compared to their new boxes, which is a more eco-friendly type of box. But aside from that, it's very compact, very small. Shows you a picture of the lens and all that. Has your serial number and all that stuff in the back. Mine was made May 2nd, 2023. And here is the lens compared to it. So small lens, small box, they go with each other. All right, let's pop it open. And the first thing you usually see is their nice little Leica pouch. And this pouch is actually very nice. I'm surprised I haven't used it. It's very thick and the inside is kind of felt or velour. So very soft, very nice. You throw your lens in there and there you go. There's your lens. Alrighty, inside you also have your menu. All right, comes in many languages. And there it is. There is the box itself. All right, so additionally you get your Leica Photos magazine subscription. And you also get a card with signatures of who packed the box and who inspected it. Very nice. I always like that. It gives it more of a human connection. And this is the box itself, the inner box where the lens would be, and it's actually very nice. It's that shiny, almost matted type of box. Does make noise. So right on top you get the vented circular lens hood, which screws on. I'll put that there. And inside is where the lens would be. This is my Adorama receipt. Here is the original lens cap. Looks just like that. And you get a second lens hood. This is the classical lens hood. It kind of faithfully recreates the 1960s one. And these were initially, with the first batches, bad. Meaning that when you popped on your UV filter and put this on top, it would vignette. It made it pop out a bit too much. I believe this one did it too. I believe both of them did, or I forgot which one did. I believe only the screwed in one did. If you know, please let us know in the comments. I'd like to get that clarified. But I did not order my free updated one. I read that if you contact Leica USA New Jersey and tell them, hey, this is my serial number, could I please have one? And they'll send you an updated one. So if you have this lens and you didn't know about this, send them an email and get that done. It's free and it helps clear out the vignette. All right, let's pop on the lens cap on the lens. I don't use the original lens cap because it is a push-on lens cap. And personally, it's a very snug fit and it's very difficult to take on and off in my opinion, and probably easier to lose because over time, since it's plastic, it might stretch out a little bit and one day it might just fall off. Everything is expensive, including the lens caps. I just bought a cheap 46mm off eBay and much easier, right? Simple. So it's a bit more incognito versus the giant Leica logo. All right, and that is basically the unboxing. Let's go on to the next part. Now we're going to take a closer look at how the Leica Steel Rim Reissue compares to the Voigtlander 35mm 1.4 version 2 and the Voigtlander Ultron 35mm 1.7 spherical. All right, let's get them on a spin stand. Here we have our first angle, the side profile, and you could take a better look at how small and compact it is. While it is a silver color, it is very slim, and it is a lens that has a much smaller profile when you're out on the street. Here we have a different angle so you could take a better look at the rear optics. It is rather large, so be careful when you are switching it out onto different bodies, as it does stick out a bit more and it's more prone to getting scratched by accident. Luckily, these new multi-coatings are much more durable compared to the original steel rim or the pre-sphericals. Here we got our comparison between the Voigtlander and the Summilux. You could see the Summilux has the infinity lock, meanwhile the Voigtlander does not. They both are very similar in size and shape. You could even see that the Voigtlander has the steel rim on top, just like the Steel Rim Reissue. Here we have another angle of the same comparison. You could see that the rear elements are very similar in shape, and they both stick out a bit more. So when changing out lenses, please be careful because they're more prone to getting scratched with them sticking out that much and also being very wide. Very similar lenses overall, and you can't go wrong with either one. Up next, we have the Voigtlander Ultron 1.7 spherical and the Steel Rim Reissue. These newer lenses of the modern age are just much bigger. Meanwhile, the Steel Rim Reissue just has much simpler element designs, making it a much more compact lens. Both of these lenses are aimed at different consumers. The spherical being much more corrected, much more sharp. Meanwhile, the classical look of the Summilux is something that is of a different age and for different folks that have different aims and what they want to capture. Both of these lenses have different advantages. Of course, the steel rim being much smaller is just much lighter and easier to carry around all day, versus the Ultron is much more sharper, but this version being all brass is much heavier to carry around all day. Both of these lenses are just phenomenal, depending on what you want to use them for. Here's another angle. You could see just how much longer the newer optics are with the spherical elements inside, much more sophisticated lens designs. These lenses of the modern ages have gotten a lot bigger, but still, for being 35mm at mount, they are the smallest available 35mm lenses out there. If you take a look at anything from Canon or Nikon or even Sony, they are much larger. Our final angle includes having the Leica Steel Rim Reissue mounted on the new Leica M11 glossy black paint, just to have an idea how compact it looks on an M body. And from this side profile, you could see that it is very short. This is a lens that when you have it across your shoulder or across your neck, you're really not going to feel the heft of it. Most of that weight is towards the center of the mount. It's a lens that you could take out and have on you all day long. Being 35mm, it's wide enough to get those shots, while also being close enough to get them portraits. An important aspect for all photographers is how a lens handles. Usually how it handles makes a difference between keeping a lens and getting rid of it. And there's no exception to this $4,000 lens. So we're going to take a closer look at how it handles. The aperture range on this lens is from 1.4 all the way to f/16. And the increments are in half intervals, and hopefully my microphone can catch it. Let's see. There we go. That's how it sounds. It's very clicky. It's very tactile. I like it, but there's a serious issue with it. And I don't know if it's just my copy, but I've seen on YouTube a few people complain about this, so I'm guessing it might affect other people too. And let's see if you could hear it. If you could hear that, that is actually my aperture ring having some play in it. It's not bad to the point where, oh, it's gonna fall apart. It feels very solid, but only when you actually engage it, when you touch the rings, does it make that noise. If you shake it, you can't really hear it. What you do hear when I'm shaking it is the infinity lock. This does move a lot more freely, and you could hear that when you shake it a bit. So for $4,000, the quality control should be better than this. But luckily, Leica does have great customer service, so if you receive a copy that does shake, let them know right away and they'll sort you out. And if you want Adorama, B&H, reach out to them and just return the lens and get a new copy. Hopefully by now, they've released copies where this has been taken care of. This lens is made out of brass and some parts aluminum and other materials that I'm not aware of. So it feels very substantial in the hand. One important thing is the infinity lock, see? It won't move. You have to engage this infinity lock by clicking it, and then it moves freely. And if you could hear that satisfying click when it engages, that's really nice. And it's not something hard to press, it's super easy. So if you're quickly wanting to take a picture, you just, as if you were focusing, just put your finger there and it automatically does it. One thing I want to comment is that the focus throw is nice and smooth. It's very easy to use, but it's not too easy. It's not too hard and it's not too soft. And it's not buttery smooth, but it's very, very smooth. It takes 46mm filters. So one awesome advantage of the reissue versus the sphericals is that this has a 46mm thread. So getting UV filters, black and white filters such as orange, yellow, red is much easier for this versus the pre-sphericals, which you have to get dedicated Leica filters. Those are like $80 to $100 a pop, and most of the times used because it's vintage. You can't find them new. Well, you could always get old stock, but that's even more expensive. So for this, if you have the 50mm Summilux spherical version 1, that has a 46mm thread. So you could share it with this and you don't have to spend extra money on extra filters. Versus the pre-sphericals, you have to get those dedicated filters. There's no way around it. The words Leica and budget usually don't mix at all, but if you are on a budget and you want to save as much money as possible getting this lens, then I highly recommend you hop on Fred Miranda, Facebook Marketplace, and if you're brave enough, check out the Leica stores. I've seen them go anywhere used from $3,000 all the way up to $3,700. So if you get it on the lower end, you're saving $1,000, which is, that's a lot of money. The best thing about buying them used is that you're not buying a 30-year-old lens, 40-year-old lens, 50-year-old lens. You're buying a lens that is at most 4 years old, 3 years old. So you don't even need to get a CLA on it. It's ready to go and it's as clean and young as it'll ever be. But if you have the deeper pockets and you want that experience of unboxing a brand new lens, then for sure, buy a new one. There's only so much I could tell you about this lens and how it performs, how it handles. The biggest test is, how do the images look like? And for that, I'm going to show you a few images I've taken on digital and film. So let's get to that. Hey, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed my images, and hopefully through those images you could see that I love shooting at 1.4. Of course, I try to include samples that were shot at 2.8 and above so you could see just how modern this lens can shoot. My favorite part about this lens is just the portraits it creates. At 1.4, that glow that you get on people is just mesmerizing. It really makes people stand out in a unique way, almost a dreamy kind of vibe. When you buy this lens, you're not just buying one lens, you're actually buying two lenses. Now you're probably saying, why am I saying that? Am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. Well, I hope not. At 1.4, the images you get totally, drastically look different. At 5.6, this is indistinguishable from a Sony lens, a Zeiss lens. The look is totally modern, contrasty, sharp. Back to 1.4, it's dreamy, glowy, whatever you want to call it. It's just surreal in my opinion. It paints art, as I'd like to say, compared to like the 50 0.95. that paints its own art, this also does its own art. You just can't get that look with any other lens, and that's basically the premium you're paying when you buy the reissue. But not only the reissue, the pre-asphericals, as they're called, paint the same image, but lower contrast. This has newer coating, so it's a bit warmer, it's a bit more contrastier. The only issues I have with this lens are the quality control, the minimal focus distance, and sometimes the infinity lock. So let me explain a bit more. The quality control for $4,000 or even $3,000 used shouldn't be there. This little rattling, while not a huge deal, when you're paying that much, it should be as perfect as could be, and this is obviously not as perfect as could be. Luckily, that's the only main issue with the body itself. Everything else has been working great. The second issue is the 1 meter minimal focus distance. When you want to take portraits with this, you can't get really close, unfortunately. But one thing about it is, officially, it's supposed to be, where is it? Officially, it's supposed to be 1 meter, right? Let me zoom in there. But it goes a bit more, if you could see. So maybe it's like 0.9, maybe 0.8 if we're lucky. I don't know if that varies by copies. That might tie into the QC because it should stop at 1. Now, the one that might affect most people is the infinity lock. Some people hate these, and on the lenses they have, they might get this removed because some people just don't have time to go for that grab. Sometimes that millisecond is the difference between getting a shot or missing it. Now, for people who don't have $4,000 to spend, or even the $3,000 on the used market to spend on this, there is a budget version of this lens per se, and that is the Voigtlander 1.4 version 2, or even the version 1. Both of them are almost based on this. They're basically homages to the original one. They are visually very similar. This even has the steel rim on top. The only main difference I could see is the Voigtlander does not have an infinity lock, so it's free flowing. You see how much faster that is? Maybe like a millisecond faster versus... But that millisecond, like I said before, could make the difference between getting a shot and missing it. The biggest difference between these lenses is their pricing, and it's also the biggest. This is a $4,000 lens brand new. Meanwhile, the Voigtlander is a $600 lens brand new. In the used market, you could find the version 2 of the Voigtlander for $450 to $400 if you're lucky. The version 1 for $350 to $400. Meanwhile, you could find for $3,000 on the lower end, all the way to $3,500. One thing about this lens is that it hasn't had a lot of time to depreciate. It's only been out for 3 years at most, 4 years at most. So give it a bit more time, it should go down a bit more. The build quality is pretty different on both of these lenses. This is mainly a brass constructed lens, meanwhile this one is aluminum, and you can feel it. The heft is much more on this one, and when a lens is made out of brass, you could really feel it. It's very dense. Meanwhile, on an aluminum-made lens, it's a lot less dense, and it does feel a bit more flimsy in my opinion. Additionally, if you could see, this has more aperture blades, and they are rounded or curved. Meanwhile, this has straight aperture blades, so your sun stars are going to be different for sure, and also that means the bokeh is going to be different. The most critical difference between these lenses, in my opinion, is their lens design. While they both perform very similarly, they are very different in fact. As you may know, the Mandler design goes all the way back to the 1960s. Meanwhile, the Voigtlander has a much newer design, which makes it a bit more modern, a bit more sharp, a bit more controlled, versus the Leica has a more untamed classical look to it. It's very creamy, very... You don't know what results you're gonna get, but it's gonna be dreamy and glowy. The best bang for your buck, if you want to get the look of the Steel Rim Reissue, is the Voigtlander. It really is. And especially the single coating version, that one has less lens coatings, so that allows you to get a bit more flares, a bit more of that glow. It's never going to be the same because of the lens design. That's just a fact that we have to accept. But this is as close as you can get if you're on a budget. The next best thing to do, in my opinion, is just save up, and eventually you'll be able to get it. and let me tell you, it's one hell of a lens, and it is my favorite 35mm. So you might be there sitting wondering, who's going to spend $4,000 on a lens? And I'll tell you who. This lens is mainly for people that appreciate heritage, craftsmanship, and want a lens with a soul. That's how I describe this lens. This lens, if they had souls, this would be one of them. When I mean heritage, I mean that this lens is part of Leica history, being the first 35mm 1.4 and the world's fastest lens at the time, and barely produced, very few low numbers. The opportunity to be able to buy this in 2024, 2023, whenever you bought it, is essentially crazy. It's like going back in time and bringing a brand new lens back with you, because that's essentially what you're getting. Leica basically built a time machine in the form of getting this lens to you. Craftsmanship is tied to the fact that Leica is one of the very few lens manufacturers that can produce a lens like this, made out of brass to high tolerances, and from the past, designs that existed 50 years ago and are still relevant and awesome as they were back then today. Soul, because this is a lens for people who want to be creative, they want to be artistic, they want more than a boring, sharp lens. And I'm not saying sharpness is bad. Sharpness is excellent. It's great when you need it. But this lens allows you to be creative, to be free-flowing with your photography. I'm not saying other lenses can't do that, but I'm saying that this was one of the original lenses that started it all, with 1.4 and that dreamy Leica glow. Up until now, even, there's not a lot of lenses that could do that, that could inspire people to go out and look for that creamy, glowy look. If you can relate to any of those attributes, doesn't matter if it's one or the other, then this is a lens for you. This is a lens that will inspire you to go out and shoot, that will feel good in the hand, that you'll be able to admire the craftsmanship, the handling, the ergonomics of it, and just be free with your photography. And with that, I bring you a final thought on the 35mm Summilux Steel Rim Reissue. It's a beautiful blend of history and performance in one package. It's not about technical perfection, it's about character. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, drop a comment below, and subscribe to Chris and Cameras for more deep dives and first thoughts and impressions on more lenses and cameras. Now that we've reached over 100 subscribers, my next goal is 1,000 subscribers, and for that, I'm gonna also do a giveaway. I don't know what yet, so stay tuned. I'll figure out something, and I'll let you know in the next few videos what that's gonna be. I'm looking forward to it. Tell me in the comments, what lens do you think has a soul? Because some lenses, like this one, have a soul. So I'd really like to know. Drop a comment, let's talk about it, and see you in the next one.